Diddy's ex wrapped up her testimony today after 4 grueling days on the stand.
She might have a lawsuit too.
Singer Dawn Richard testifies that Sean Diddy Combs hit Cassie Ventura with a skillet full of eggs.
You got to go back to the drugs and the alcohol, man. The drugs and the alcohol, man. And those things will make you do strange.
What does it really take to silence an entire courtroom? Dawn Richard's explosive testimony about Cassie's alleged abuse at the hands of Diddy stunned everyone into silence. Brace yourself for jaw-dropping revelations that expose a dark truth no one saw coming.
Diddy's ex wrapped up her testimony today after 4 grueling days on the stand. The defense hit her hard during cross-examination, asking her about a stint in rehab for PTSD, a rape allegation, and asking her to read explicit text messages from over the past 15 years.
Richard accused Combs of sexual harassment, gender discrimination, and a hostile work environment by being exposed to sex trafficking and sex acts. She also alleged that she was a victim of false imprisonment. In her suit, Richard stated she was seeking compensatory and punitive damages, as well as other costs for post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and emotional suffering, and financial losses she suffered as a result of Combs' alleged behavior. Combs has denied her allegations. His lawyer told E! News in September, Mr. Combs is shocked and disappointed by this lawsuit. Richard's testimony in Combs' ongoing trial comes 8 months after she accused the rapper in a lawsuit of subjecting her to years of inhumane working conditions, which included groping, assault, and false imprisonment. The lawsuit, filed in September, obtained by E! News, stated, Mr. Combs frequently held meetings with Ms. Richard wearing only his underwear, despite Ms. Richard's protests and repeated requests for him to put on clothing. In her filing, the 41-year-old also alleged that Combs ordered her to strip down to her underwear, made demeaning remarks about her body, and entered her dressing room unannounced while she was unclothed, and touched her without her permission under the guise of showing the stylist what to do.
Dawn Richard's testimony hit the courtroom like a lightning bolt. A former member of Danity Kane, the girl group created under Diddy's management, Dawn was more than just a former collaborator. She was a close observer of the inner workings of Diddy's world. This made her testimony one of the most critical pieces in the trial's first week. People expected that she might have a few insights to share, but the details she revealed left the room frozen in shock. What exactly did she say about Cassie's alleged abuse that silenced an entire courtroom? Dawn's connection to both Diddy and Cassie wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. As part of Danity Kane, she worked closely with Diddy, meaning she interacted with him and the people in his orbit on a daily basis. Cassie, of course, was his longtime girlfriend, a relationship that many thought looked glamorous from the outside. But Dawn's testimony painted a much darker picture of what really went on behind closed doors. Her words added context to the years of whispers about abuse that had hovered around Diddy and Cassie's relationship. When it was Dawn's turn to take the stand, the courtroom's energy shifted immediately. She described moments where she allegedly witnessed Diddy's angry outbursts, leaving those around him walking on eggshells. According to her, these outbursts didn't spare Cassie, who often bore the brunt of his fury. Dawn was clear that her description wasn't based on rumors, but on things she personally experienced. She was there watching it all unfold. Dawn spoke in detail about one specific incident that left the room in stunned silence. Without revealing any quotes, she described an argument where Diddy reportedly screamed at Cassie to the point where her physical reaction betrayed the emotional toll his words had taken. It wasn't just the yelling, though. It was the menacing tone and the way Diddy allegedly manipulated every situation so that Cassie would feel powerless to defend herself. For Dawn, this moment became etched in her memory, and she described it as one of several instances where Cassie seemed trapped under Diddy's control. The weight of Dawn's testimony didn't just come from the events she described, but from the way it was delivered. Her voice reportedly carried traces of anger and sadness, as though she had been waiting for years to finally speak out. Legal analysts in the room reportedly said that first-hand accounts like hers can be a powerful tool in a trial. It's one thing to hear allegations in a general sense, but it's another thing entirely to have a witness recount specific events they observed. For the jury, this sort of testimony brings the allegations to life in a way that's hard to ignore. And Diddy's reaction, that was another story entirely. As Dawn spoke, reporters in the courtroom described his body language as defensive, almost as though he wasn't prepared for her to be so direct. He shifted in his seat. His expression darkened, and he reportedly leaned over to his legal team during her testimony. While he didn't interrupt, it was clear he wasn't happy with the picture Dawn was painting. And for good reason, her words weren't just undermining his carefully curated public image. They were adding weight to Cassie's claims in a way that couldn't be ignored. But the moment that really landed with the jury and the public watching from the outside was when Dawn reportedly said she believed Cassie spent most of her time just trying to survive. Those 5 words hit like a hammer, summing up years of alleged emotional and physical abuse in a way that left many in the courtroom visibly shaken. It wasn't just about the arguments or the alleged control Diddy exercised. It was about how Cassie had apparently lived in a constant state of fear and isolation with no clear way out. Dawn's testimony wasn't just another piece of evidence. It became a turning point in the trial, creating a ripple effect that would inevitably influence how the jury viewed Diddy moving forward. Her account tied into the larger narrative being built around the alleged abuse, adding another layer to the case that the defense will undoubtedly struggle to counter. As the first week of the trial came to a close, Dawn's words hung in the air. They weren't just about her memories. They were about shining a light on a situation that had been hidden for far too long. And with more witnesses expected to testify in the coming days, including others close to Cassie and Diddy, the courtroom is bracing for more revelations. What's next for this trial, only time will tell. But for now, Dawn's bombshell testimony has set the stage for what could be a defining case in the world of celebrity justice.
She witnessed, and she's saying that she witnessed a gangbang, which actually we know it as called a train. And she worked on the album, The Train to Paris. And like I heard one of the YouTube, it could be Tistel, say that we didn't know what the train to Paris meant. But now we know that the train to Paris was a train in Scotland. It wasn't a train in Paris, it was a train in Scotland. Every time I have a witness doing something is when 2 guys and 2 girls will go in the room. And that was just regular. And however they did it, whatever they did, that was their business. But he gotten bold enough whereas that he would do that in front of Dawn and other people at a poolside in Scotland. You sure it was Scotland, man?
Danity Kane alum Don Richard, who began working with Sean Diddy Combs while competing on his show Making the Band in 2004, took the stand after Cassie wrapped her testimony May 16th. Richard joined Combs' group Diddy Dirty Money after Danity Kane disbanded. While on the stand, she told jurors that she saw Combs hit Ventura with a skillet full of eggs at his Los Angeles home in 2009. Richard testified per NBC News. He came downstairs asking where his phone was, and he threw her to the ground. He attempted to kick her. She fell to the ground and went into the fetal position, literally trying to hide her head. In addition to striking Ventura with the skillet, Richard said Combs put his arm around the singer's neck and took her upstairs before she heard glass breaking. Richard added, "I was scared for her. I was scared to do."
The courtroom drama surrounding Diddy just hit a whole new level. A bombshell audio recording featuring Cassie was introduced, and it rocked the room. On the tape, Cassie is reportedly heard threatening a Diddy associate who allegedly had video evidence of a violent confrontation. The atmosphere in that courtroom shifted instantly. Even the jurors, stoic up until that point, were visibly stunned. Why? Because this wasn't just a smoking gun. It was a raw, emotional glimpse into the chaos behind Diddy and Cassie's once glamorous facade. This was no tabloid rumor. This was Cassie's own voice, cracking with desperation, laced with rage, laying bare a side of their relationship the public had never seen. The tape played. The courtroom went silent. Cassie's voice filled the air, furious, unrelenting, emotionally wrecked. According to legal insiders, her tone didn't scream malice or revenge. It sounded like a woman pushed to the edge, a person trying to survive years of emotional warfare. Her threats? They weren't calculated. They were desperate, the final snap in a long, silent buildup of psychological strain. Here's what we know. On the tape, Cassie is addressing a man believed to be closely tied to Diddy. This man allegedly held video proof of a violent altercation between her and Diddy. And Cassie, her voice trembling between fire and fear, demands answers. She makes threats. But beneath those words is something deeper, a woman cornered, terrified that her pain could be erased or denied. The emotional charge of that recording gripped the room. And it did more than just expose the toxicity. It pulled back the curtain on the entire system Diddy allegedly controlled. This wasn't just about a bad breakup or a toxic argument. This was a power dynamic that roped in associates, staff, and anyone orbiting his empire. But why would Cassie risk it all and lash out at someone tied to Diddy? Experts weighed in. This kind of outburst isn't unusual in abusive relationships. When someone's been gaslit, isolated, and emotionally battered for years, their reactions become unpredictable. Not because they're unstable, but because they've reached their breaking point. One legal analyst put it bluntly, that audio didn't just support the abuse allegations, it embodied them. Cassie didn't sound unhinged. She sounded exhausted, the kind of tired that comes from constantly being afraid, silenced, and controlled. That wasn't rage. That was survival mode. For the jury, this tape added a thick layer of complexity. It didn't just affirm what other witnesses had said, it brought it to life. First, there was Dawn Richards' powerful testimony. Now there's audio proof that Cassie lived in a cycle of emotional chaos and desperation. But don't expect Diddy's team to let this sit. Word is, they're gearing up to weaponize that very desperation against her. Their strategy? Discredit Cassie. Paint her as erratic, unstable, untrustworthy. It's a classic defense play, especially when the accused is a high-powered celebrity. Sources say the defense is even digging into Cassie's mental health history and past personal conflicts. They're ready to drag every skeleton out in an attempt to muddy her credibility. But here's what they can't erase. The tape. That audio wasn't just a woman lashing out. It was a cry from someone drowning. And in the world of celebrity justice, where image is everything, that raw emotion hits differently. Cassie, once seen as the silent girlfriend in the background, now has a voice shaking the foundation of Diddy's empire. She's no longer invisible. She's center stage, and the world is finally listening. So what happens next? Will the defense double down and try to bury Cassie in her own trauma? Or will more testimony, and maybe more tapes, further expose the dark undercurrent behind Diddy's image? One thing is certain. This is no longer just a trial. It's a reckoning. A story of power, fear, and control unraveling in real time. And the next move could change everything.
Things that she's gonna have to bring up into the lawsuit, that Diddy stopped the way that she was working and how she could work by the fact that he would change, like you just said. What she would do, bro, he would turn off her mic and don't let her sing songs or don't let her do certain things, a part of the band, when he didn't do her sexual advancements. I don't know what to say about that, brother. All I can say is that, you know, all of it sounds like using his power. He's using his power to get at people that works for him. And when you do that, when they bring you to court, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna lose if they can prove it.
One text message, Cassie writes, "I'm lost without you."
We know now that she called herself Cece for Cassie Combs. We know now that she wanted to have a child with him.
Jurors also heard an audio recording where Cassie could be heard threatening to kill a Diddy associate who had video of one of her freak-offs with Diddy.
The jurors were shocked. I saw the eyebrows raised.
Cassie was asked about receiving a FaceTime from her now husband while she was having sex with Diddy.
I think they're trying to use what they can, again, to discredit her.
The defense team's strategy to shift the spotlight onto Cassie's past may have seemed calculated at first, but it backfired in a way no one expected. By dragging her time in rehab into the courtroom, by spotlighting her battle with PTSD, and even dredging up a rape allegation from earlier in her life, they weren't just trying to dismantle her testimony, they were trying to dismantle her. They wanted to frame her as emotionally unstable, unreliable, hoping that her darkest personal battles would unravel her credibility in front of the jury. But instead, their move brought new layers to this case, layers that they didn't anticipate. Rather than undermining Cassie's character, the tactic painted a raw and vivid picture of a woman dealing with deep trauma and systemic manipulation. Legal experts watching the case closely say the defense's strategy may have actually reinforced her claims, because instead of discrediting her, those painful admissions made it painfully clear how someone like Diddy could allegedly exploit her emotional vulnerabilities. How control doesn't always look like shouting or bruises. Sometimes it's psychological, silent, suffocating. Then came the text messages, intimate ones between Cassie and Diddy. The defense zoomed in on a message where Cassie wrote, I'm lost without you. They leaned hard on this one, trying to portray her as emotionally dependent to suggest their relationship, while Stormy was mutual, consensual. But that's the thing. Trauma doesn't follow logic. Experts pointed out that survivors of abuse often feel intense emotional ties to their abusers, not because their suffering wasn't real, but because they've been conditioned to believe they don't deserve better, that they can't escape. Those messages didn't show love. They revealed entrapment. Cassie didn't sound in love. She sounded lost. And yet the defense kept hammering the same point, claiming her emotional instability disqualified her from offering a reliable account of what happened during those years with Diddy. It's a classic play. Discredit the survivor, not the system. Attack the character, not the context. But it might have backfired. Again, instead of poking holes in her story, they ended up showing how deep the rabbit hole of manipulation really went. And that power imbalance between Cassie and Diddy, it became impossible to ignore. She wasn't just telling a story of emotional dependency. She was living through the consequences of it. PTSD, rehab, spirals of trauma. This line of attack, meant to cast doubt, ended up doing the opposite. It reframed her past struggles not as disqualifiers, but as evidence. The jury saw not just a woman with scars, but how those scars might have been inflicted. What was supposed to be a strategic distraction only added weight to the bigger picture. A relationship built on control, intimidation, and silence. The courtroom wasn't just hearing about pain anymore. They were watching it unravel in real time. And with more witnesses set to take the stand, including former Danity Kane members and insiders from Diddy's inner circle, the narrative is only getting more tangled, more real, more undeniable. Whether intentional or not, the defense's move to expose Cassie's past didn't just challenge her, it challenged everyone to confront the bigger question. What kind of damage gets buried when someone's pain is dismissed as instability? The trial isn't just about what happened behind closed doors, it's about the systems that allowed it to stay hidden. This case is far from over, and the next twist might change everything.
Fortunately, we're all going to take a disgusting trip to his seedy, awful world. You know, the man has no class. He has no kindness in his dark, dark heart. And he's depraved. That's my opinion. This is a depraved, disgusting individual.
The facts are the facts, the texts are the texts, and I think that the evidence will be clear.
That Ventura had a choice and that she chose to participate in those sexual encounters.
Where she is entertaining other people in the bedroom. He enjoyed having the freak-offs.
She's being asked specifically about the drug use.
She is clearly excited about freak-off.
Aubrey O'Day is stepping into the fire. Another former member of Danity Kane, another voice ready to speak out. This time about life under Diddy's management. What did she see? What does she know? That's the question gripping everyone as Aubrey prepares to testify. And she's not alone. Former employees, people from inside his personal and professional circles, they're all lining up one after another to tell their stories. Each one adds another thread to this unraveling tapestry, and suddenly it's getting much harder to look away. Dawn Richard already stunned the courtroom. Her chilling account of Cassie's alleged abuse forced the jury to see past the polished public image. Now, with Aubrey expected to speak, the focus shifts towards something bigger. A possible pattern of control, intimidation, and manipulation that stretched far beyond just one relationship. Aubrey brings a unique lens. She was there during Danity Kane's peak. She saw the behind-the-scenes dynamic. She's also been outspoken in the past, calling out Diddy's intense, high-pressure tactics. She never directly accused him of abuse before, but her voice has always hinted at the darkness behind the spotlight. If her testimony lines up with Cassie and Dawn's accounts, it could paint a picture of consistent behavior. Across years, across relationships, across power dynamics. That's what makes these multiple testimonies so powerful. They don't just tell stories, they build patterns, and patterns are hard to ignore. Dawn described watching Cassie physically and emotionally shut down, how the pressure, the control, was constant. Now imagine that testimony, followed by Aubrey's, and then imagine former employees, not just friends, not just insiders, but the people who kept Diddy's business running. If they confirm what others have claimed, or even worse, if they admit they were instructed to stay quiet or cover things up, that could change everything. It raises the stakes, it raises the pressure, and it forces the defense into a corner, trying to cast doubt on too many voices at once. Because when multiple people from different walks of life say the same thing, it stops sounding like gossip. It starts sounding like truth. So what will Aubrey reveal? Will she speak on controlling behavior behind the scenes? Will she describe a toxic professional environment that mirrors Cassie's private claims? If so, the prosecution's case grows stronger. And Diddy, he's already showing cracks. In court, every move he makes is under the microscope. He tried to stay calm, collected, untouchable. But when Cassie testified, when the audio clips played, that armor started to break. Observers saw it, the clenched jaw, the fidgeting, the furious whispers to his lawyers. Dawn's testimony especially hit hard. Afterward, Diddy's body language shifted. His face darkened. He leaned in aggressively. It was a rare moment of lost control for a man who built his career on image. But the image is slipping, because this trial isn't just about Diddy the celebrity. It's about power, control, the cost of silence, and the courage it takes to speak. For years, Diddy shaped culture. Now he's watching that legacy hang by a thread. The first week was just the beginning. More witnesses are coming, more voices ready to speak. And with every new testimony, the question echoes louder. How much more will come to light? And when it does, will the man once seen as untouchable finally be held accountable? This trial is no longer just a scandal, it's a reckoning. Stay